Hey, I'm Sahan from DetailsPro, and this is going to be a quick video on designing in dark mode. 90% of this video is going to come down to just one idea, and we're going to talk about that in like 10 seconds. But basically, in this video, we're just going to recreate this design that you see here for this, fictitious photo printing ordering checkout page that I think has just enough elements in it for us to get through all the concepts. But yeah, so it's going to be pretty simple. So let's start talking about this now. So the big idea that I think really makes all this come together and is all you really need to know is that there are dynamic system colors, sometimes referred to as semantic colors. And there are these colors that you can use that represent a purpose as opposed to representing an exact color. Like for example, red is a color, black, white, green, those are all colors. But iOS and all these platforms have some colors called primary and secondary and system background. So using these colors in place of specifically black or white is basically all. You could stop watching this video right now and you learned everything you need to know. But if you want to stick around, I'm going to put it in practice and let's get to that right now. So first I'm going to start by just erasing everything here so we can start from scratch. Okay, we got a blank canvas, we're set on the iPhone size. So without doing anything, just to demonstrate really quick, if I put down text, you'll see that it's black, right? And if I switch to dark mode, you might wonder, is that text going to be hard to see or is it going to be visible? Super easy to see. So because text defaults to using one of those dynamic system colors, namely, it uses primary if you don't do anything. It's super smart, right? It switched to white and the background switched to black, which by the way, that is one of the other dynamic system colors. That is system background. And you can see actually they work really nicely together. So this is not something that DetailsPro is coming up with. This is all native SwiftUI behavior. So props to the people who came up with all this because it is super easy to use. But yeah, let's get started with our design and I'll kind of show you what the workflow might be like when you want to check your design along the way to make sure it looks good in dark mode. So that design had maybe the photo that you're printing and some metadata and then a button. So I'm going to start with just the image. Let's just get something easy up. So I'm going to use that cute picture of the dog. I'm going to constrain that image. I'm going to give it a height. Let's say it is 400 high. Cool. And then let's give it, let's say it fills instead of fitting into its box. So it's okay if it gets cropped a little bit. We're going to need a vertical stack for everything. So I'm going to put this in a vertical stack. Okay. And then just to get a little bit of a nice padding on the walls, I'm going to put a padding on the whole vertical stack. So that actually looks fine. Maybe let's dress this up with a corner radius. Okay. So far so good. We haven't done anything that really needs any dark mode attention, right? Because the picture is a picture and when we go to dark mode, the background's going to change to black, but you can still actually make the photo out and the border's just fine because they're nice and colorful and varied. So let's get started with that metadata on the top. And actually, I don't know, who knows, maybe you'll see a couple of things if you haven't seen before in terms of how to manage these styles. So, okay, so I'm going to put some text up there. I'm going to put a symbol next to it that says, maybe let's say this is like the location, the geotag of the photo. So I'm going to put beach cliffs is where this was taken. Let's change the symbol into a map pin. There we go, map pin. And I'm going to put the date on there. So I'm going to use a spacer to push that on that side, put a date on the other side. But actually, before we do that, let's style this text a little bit. So I mentioned earlier that primary is the default, right? And we're definitely seeing that because beach cliffs is black, You can see it's even appears to be affecting the symbol, right? The symbol's black. Let's do a quick check to see what happens in dark mode. Okay, totally great. Flip to white. One thing I do want to change though, I don't think this information is necessarily so important and so primary that it needs to be that bright. So I'm going to change it to, I want to make it secondary. So instead of having to go on the text and then again on the symbol, I'm just going to go on the entire horizontal stack and add a modifier. So I'm going to add a color modifier to the horizontal stack, and I'm going to say secondary. Perfect. It's nice and gray. I'm also going to add a font because I just want it to be a little bit smaller. So let's say the font is sub-headline. Okay, I like that. So beautiful. And by the way, if we switch back to light, I mean, it's still gray. It's a different gray. It's kind of hard to tell, but that looks nice. So let's just go ahead and add one more piece of metadata on the right, and then we'll move on to the button down below. Which, by the way, since those modifiers of color and font are on the horizontal stack, maybe if you like, just give a quick guess to, you know, what is this text going to look like when I add it into that horizontal stack. It comes in and automatically inherits those styles. So keep that in mind. Really cool way to style a whole group if you can get away with it. So I'm just going to put a date here, Saturday, June 13th. Okay. So there was some really easy dark mode stuff, right? And actually, let me show you what not to do. You know what to do. This is what not to do. You could have gone and said, you know, I want this text to, let's say you wanted it to be black and you saw primary, and instead you had scrolled all the way down to black and just said, you know what, it's not primary, it's just black. The problem here now is that color is not going to change in dark mode. So when we switch, you can't see it at all, right? Super easy thing. It's not, I want to mention, there are definitely good uses of the color black and the color white. We're actually going to use the color white specifically in a second. But my advice would be start with the dynamic system colors and force it to black or white when you know it's going to work, which we're gonna do a situation right now where we know that'll work. Okay, so let me undo and go back to where that was. Perfect. So now we're just going to add a button on the bottom that's like add to cart. So let's start putting this thing together. I'm going to go with a horizontal stack. I'm going to add some text. I want to do one of those buttons that's got a solid fill background with border radius or corner radius. So I'm going to do add to cart. Okay. Let's put in this horizontal stack maybe a cart icon to the left. I think it's just called cart. Yeah. Oh, we could do cart with a plus. Yeah, that looks good. And then this ties into that intro video, which, by the way, if you are watching this far and you haven't watched the intro to SwiftUI for beginners, pretty cool way to just kind of refresh stuff. I really start from like the very, very beginnings. But if you are already pretty skilled, then I'm going to re-explain something here, which I just think is a good thing to reinforce. So we want to make a big fill blue button, right? The way that I want to do it is by adding a background color to that whole stack. And you're going to watch, it's not going to work right away, but we're going to make it work. So I'm going to go blue. Okay, so looks pretty sad, right? It is not a big, beautiful, spacious button. And that's for a couple reasons, but the main reason is simply that the horizontal stack currently just occupies just that much space. It's not really stretching to the sides. So I'm going to add a couple of spacers that help this horizontal stack grow. Now when I added that first one, that spacer took up all the available space and pushed the text to the left. So I can balance that by just adding a spacer on the left. So now there's spacer, spacer, and the content. Finally, I'm going to add padding because I want to get a little bit of vertical padding on the stuff in there. Now you'll notice that also didn't really seem to work how we wanted, right? Because it's still kind of a thin, sad blue box. And this is actually a great little moment right here because this shows that it's sort of the most common example of showing that modifier order does matter. Some situations it doesn't, but in this one it totally does. And the best way to think about it is I would start at your first modifier and go to the next ones and just think, does that make sense for an order of applying my design changes? Because right now what's happening is the content is getting sized, then it's given a blue background, and then it's given padding around that. But actually what we want is we want the content to get sized, be given a padding, and then filled in with blue. So all I got to do is change the order. Boom. Looks good. Finally, I'm going to add a corner radius. And that makes sense, right? Corner radius should go at the end because you want to fill it in with blue and then take away from the little corners. So that's good. I want to change the font a little bit. I'm going to go with a headline to make it a little bolder. And now here is the case where we kind of do want to use white, right? It doesn't really make sense to use a semantic color because the button's always going to be blue. And so white will always be legible on blue in this case. So I'm going to go, everything inside this horizontal stack now has a color of white. Also, I'm going to add a little more padding on the outside just to give it a little more inset. Cool. So yeah, now you'll see as we switch to dark mode, everything at the top switched to gray because that's just normal semantic stuff or normal dynamic colors. And then on the bottom, we've still got our blue, which is slightly different blue, but that's not really for us to worry about. It's just already set up. And then we got our white text. So that is really a quick intro to designing with dark mode. Again, 90% of it comes down to using those system dynamic colors. So yeah, if you have any other questions or any comments, as always, I'd love to hear from you guys. We got a lot of good videos coming up, and I'm also going to be putting out a DetailsPro update this week. There's an update every week, but I've already started working on and finishing a lot of the features that are going to come out, so I'm excited for that. But yeah, let me know if this was helpful. Hope you had a great day. See ya.